Hey everyone, it's RK Bentley again, doing another Roadside Apologetics. Thank you for visiting, and if you're new, please like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate all my visitors, okay? If you have any questions or comments, or you disagree with me about anything, leave a comment below. But I wanted to follow up on something I was talking about in my last video. My last video I was talking about natural selection and evolution, and how natural selection is the opposite of evolution. And I had a visitor one time on Facebook. I'm in a part of a group on Facebook, and he was trying to make the point. You might have heard some people say, look, I believe in microevolution, but I don't believe in macroevolution. In other words, I acknowledge that these little changes happen in an animal population, but I don't believe it leads to big changes. And I had this person on Facebook ask, he said, look, if you could walk from Los Angeles to San Francisco, why couldn't you walk from Los Angeles to New York if you had enough time? And his point is this: if I'm acknowledging that these little changes are happening, what's to stop the little changes from accumulating over time and becoming big changes? And that's why I discourage the use of the words micro and macro evolution, okay? Because people who believe in evolution, they don't see a difference between the two. It's just how long it occurs, and they call it time and scale. It's little changes over a long time make big changes. So I'm going to give you 3 reasons why it's not that simple, why little changes that we observe in the animal populations can never lead to big changes over time. Okay, so number 1, the changes would have to be in one direction. When Darwin visited the Galapagos Islands, he studied the finches, and he noticed the differences in the size of their beaks. And he assumed that they all had a common ancestor, and their beaks evolved different shapes in order to, help them eat nuts and all that. Well, we've studied the finches for another 150 years since Darwin, and we've seen that the beaks tend to get bigger during times of drought, and they go back down in size during times of rain. It's a back and forth feature that comes and goes depending on changes in the environment. But if you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, there's a net change of 0, okay? There's no accumulation of changes. That would never amount to anything, no matter how long it happened, okay? So you can't walk from Los Angeles to New York by only walking in a circle. So point number 2. The changes can't have a boundary. One of the most famous examples of evolution is the so-called pepper moth evolution. And I'm not going to sit here and recite the whole study, but basically pepper moths come in a variety of shades. They come either light or dark, depending on changes that they came in shades of light or dark. And they were studied over a period of time during the Industrial Revolution, and the population changed from mostly light to mostly dark to mostly light again, okay? And it was in response to some changes in the environment. Well, let's just say that change continued only in one direction. Let's say birds ate only the light-colored moths, and the population of moths just got darker and darker and darker and darker. What's going to happen? Eventually, all the light moths get eaten, and there's nothing but dark moths left. Then the evolution has to stop, okay? You can't get more than 100% dark moth. So it'll reach 100% dark, then it'll stop. There's a boundary right there. If anything, it would just start to go back and get light again, which goes back to point number 1. It's just back and forth changes. So evolution, the changes we observe can't have a boundary. That's point number 2. You can't walk from Honolulu to New York, for example. All right, and point 3, the changes have to add something. I talked about this before. If you want to turn a dinosaur into a bird, you have to add feathers. If you want to turn a reptile into a mammal, you have to add hair, okay? For evolution to occur, you have to add things to the population. So you can't look at something like natural selection, for example, among the butterflies. or the moths we just talked about. You say, well, birds eating one color of moth, it's going to remove the light-colored moths from the population, and it's going to change the whole complexion of the population, and the population has evolved, okay? Well, that's just taking away one color. At the end of the day, there's less colors, okay? Natural selection only ever removes features from a population. It doesn't add. Natural selection is not a mechanism that adds to a population. So you can't use examples of natural selection and say, this over time will lead to evolution, okay? Because it's not adding anything, okay? You can't turn a molehill into a mountain by removing dirt, okay? You can't grow a company by losing a little bit of money every year. You can't walk from Los Angeles to New York by walking away from New York, okay? The changes have to add something, and natural selection doesn't add anything. We just observe populations losing features that aren't suitable to certain environments, okay? So those are 3 reasons why the types of changes that we occur in animal populations will never lead to big changes over time, because they're not the types of changes that can accumulate and allow something like evolution to happen. Evolution doesn't happen. Not microevolution, not macroevolution, okay? Don't even use those terms. It's just smoke and mirrors, okay? So thanks again for visiting. You all have a great day. God bless.